We're going to go ahead and record this call. Make sure you hit the got it there and we'll get things started. I've got I think a quick agenda. It depends on how this goes tonight. But I want to leave plenty of time for comments and question and answer at the end. Tonight's core area that we're talking about is inspire. You all saw the email, so you know what shouldn't be a surprise. And you saw that my topic is character, and when you're squeezed, what comes out. And to be honest, I stole that from a message I had heard a pastor preach probably 30 some years ago. And I thought, well, that really kind of defines it, doesn't it? You know, when you're under pressure, how do you respond? How do you react? And that gives people a pretty good idea about who you are, you know, the person that you are, what kind of person you're going to get. And I always like to start with a couple of quotes. And so my first one is Elbert Hubbard. So talking about character, he says, character is the result of two things: mental attitude and the way we spend our time. Think about that. And we have to get Coach John Wooden on this. He says, be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. And in that line, this is one of my favorites from the Patriot Thomas Paine. Reputation is what men and women think of us. Character is what God and the angels know of us. Ooh, that one might hurt some of us. And then here's my quote. This is what my definition of character is: who you are is based on what you believe, who you admire, and how you respond to those two influences. So, what do you believe? Who do you admire, and who do you spend your time with? And how do you respond to those two influences? That's going to determine the outcome or your character. And so when you're squeezed, what comes out? This is the fun part for anyone, not only in business, or if you're working for someone else in the job. You're always going to get squeezed. And your character is shaped by your past and your circumstances, but it is not defined by them. And that's, I want to start this by saying, no matter what you've done, no matter if you've thrown a temper tantrum in the past, Jim told me a funny story today. Maybe he'll relate it later. I don't know. But what you've done in the past isn't what defines you. It's your actions in the present that are going to define you. So, you know, we've all made mistakes, and we have to, you know, get over that, use them as a learning experience. We're going to talk about that in a little bit too. But I want to read a quick story, a paragraph. It's not really a story. It's an excerpt from my friend and partner Jim Riley's book. And there's a section in here where he says, your actions speak louder than words. And he had an acquaintance, and when he was writing his book, of course, we all look out there and we would like someone to write an endorsement, you know, somebody who knows us or knows about us. And those things help. It's the marketing thing. So he had actually asked this an influencer, a professional, if he would write something for his book about Jim. And the first response was this: absolutely. Right? And that was a yes. Nothing happened. A couple of weeks went by. Jim had some deadlines. He says, now the response, after Jim asked him again, he said, now the response was, what exactly do you want me to do anyway? And after clarifying again and giving a very specific example to the point where I almost wrote the entire thing, I received a heart emoji back. I presume that's still a yes, or at least it wasn't a no. As of the writing of this book, and by the way, this book is now published, right? It says, and several attempts to politely let this person know about my deadlines, I'm still waiting. The point of the story is to illustrate that you can say something repeatedly in different ways, but until you generate action, it doesn't matter what you say. And I won't even finish with the last sentence on there because I think I think the point is made. Our actions illustrate our character. Okay, so everything else defines who we are, but our actions are illustrating to everybody else what our real character is. So I was actually in a seminar. It was a employee assistance program mandatory meeting that we had to attend in North healthcare organization that I was a supervisor in. And I think somebody told me it came from Alcoholics Anonymous. So whatever the source, I can't give credit to where I don't know it comes from, but it says, when you're responding to stress, or when you've got friction in the workplace or friction at home, the first thing that you always want to do is the halt. This is something you might want to write down. Halt, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Those are the 4 big triggers, right? So just remember that. If someone's responding in a way that's really maybe not appropriate or not what you think is in their regular character, are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they lonely? Are they tired? Okay. So the conflict, this is where all those issues, and halt is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to go a lot deeper here in a second. But conflict is a response to that underlying condition, right? If somebody is acting out, whether they're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, there's always something subsurface. And so it's our job to look below the surface, not only with other people, but we need to look in here. We need to look into ourselves and figure out what's causing us to feel the way we feel, what's causing us to respond the way we want to respond, right? And we've got 2 choices typically. We can learn to identify this in our underlying conditions, and we can either use temper or we can use temperance, right? Act out with a temper tantrum, lash out at people, or we can be temperate with our responses. And that's dealing even with ourselves, even in our own minds. We can be hard on ourselves sometimes. And sometimes we can just take a step back and say, hey, wait a minute, there were extenuating circumstances. Those aren't excuses. Extenuating circumstances are real. So we need to identify them. So before I wrote down the halt, I started thinking about all the different things. When you're squeezed, what comes out? Well, let's go to the squeeze first. What's going to come out is going to be what's inside, but let's look at some of the squeezes, what kind of pressures we have. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired are those top 4. But I started looking into this and I thought, what are some of my triggers, right? Frustration, disappointment, pain. You ever stub your toe? All right, hit your thumb with a hammer, get pinched with a pair of pliers, have a saw jump out and leave a scar on your thumb. Pain is a good one. Fear. That's great for people who don't like spiders and snakes. I can tell you that you can have some really interesting things when that squeeze happens. What comes out? I can tell you with people in my family, spiders are a big deal. Anxiety and worry. Those are 2 big ones. And those are things that, making a list makes a difference. When you're worried about something, we always put all this stuff, we get anxious about different things, usually that we can't control, or we play that conversation we're going to have with someone over and over and over in our head. Those of you who have ever had to fire somebody, not a pleasant task, you're taking away a livelihood. And so you rehearse yourself in your own head, but there's worry and anxiety that goes along with that. One of the things I used to do is I used to wear a black tie whenever I knew I was going to have to give somebody bad news. So black tie was the morning cry. And it gave me some control. Here's some others. Obsession. And yes, we can obsess over things. Hobbies. We can obsess over projects, work projects, deadlines. We can obsess over even things that are fun. Your body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress. I don't know if you know that, but even if you get stressed out because your golf game's not good enough, your body is still taking that as stress, okay? And we can be obsessed, okay? Vengeance, there's a good one. Anybody who's ever been wronged by somebody, vengeance, and it can be a festering thing. What else is a squeeze? Rejection is a big squeeze. Guilt, depression is a squeeze. Greed, addictions, any type of addictions can be a big squeeze. Low self-esteem, probably one of the biggest squeezes out there. I've talked about that before. Shame kind of goes along with guilt, but shame is another one. Embarrassment. Here's life's most embarrassing moments, right? I could give you a couple. I will tell you one of my most embarrassing moments. Okay, this is getting real here, because you got to have a story. When you're squeezed, what comes out? I was in a carload of high school kids, and we were on our way to a divisional basketball tournament. We'd all gotten time off from school, and there were probably 6 of us in a Jeep Wagoneer on our way to Dillon, Montana. And if you know Montana, we're going from eastern Montana all the way down to Dillon, and somewhere around Big Timber, okay, I needed to use the bathroom, and I needed to use the bathroom bad. And everybody just kind of laughed. They didn't pull over. We missed the turnoff at Big Timber. We missed the turnoff at Livingston, the first one. We missed the second one at Livingston. I'm telling you, this is getting desperate now. And so we go over the Bozeman Pass, and we're outside of Bozeman, and I finally said, that's it. I've got to do it. You've got to stop. So my friend pulls off the interstate, not sideways where you could open a door and, hide yourself. He pulled off at kind of there was a wider spot in the road, and he pulled off at a 90-degree angle. So I opened the hood, had him open the hood, and I lifted up the hood, and I'm starting to relieve myself. Okay, so I'm now facing the interstate, but it's looking like I'm trying to fix something on the car. He backed up, and there I am, standing. Remember, a teenager. This is a pretty big deal. As an adult, he's like, whatever, right? I'm a teenager. I'm standing there, and of course, all the other parents and stuff who are driving to divisionals at the same time are parading by. So there I am, exposed, shocked, embarrassed, and I have to turn away. And I get by, and again, I'm mad, right? This is embarrassing. This is humiliating, and I'm shocked. And I get back in the car, and the front windshield, everyone was eating fried chicken and stuff, right? The front windshield was covered with chewed up food because everyone in the front was laughing so hard they literally spit it out. And so they had to clean the windshield off. So they had their own punishment there, I guess. But how do you respond? I could have walked, I could have gotten a fight with them, I laughed it off. At some point you just have to realize that these things happen and it's okay. You're going to get over it. It's not as big a deal as you think. And, those are life-forming things. You think about when people are teased or bullied in school and how that can leave, a lasting imprint on people. And so they're bringing that into the equation. So how they respond to the next squeeze, they're not just responding to that squeeze, they're responding to the prior squeezes as well. So learn to deal with the squeeze. I'm not even done yet. So there's embarrassment and humiliation. Arrogance is a squeeze, or if you're up against people who are arrogant. Betrayal, that's a huge one. And that could be a business betrayal. That could be a friendship betrayal, personal relationship betrayals. Doubt is a squeeze, self-doubt. Again, that gets to the low self-esteem. Being fatigued. Sometimes it's not just tired, but you can be physically fatigued, emotionally fatigued. That can be even worse. Those of us who are overworked or burned out. Here's one of my favorites. Unexpected things that pop up. That's a squeeze. And I don't know, my wife and I always said this, I don't know why a major appliance goes out before a major event. I've had water heaters go out, dishwashers go out just before summer company in Vacationville, Montana here, right? Just a few years back, we had a whole lot of family coming to stay at my house. I had 2 sisters, a brother and his wife, my mother and my father, and all the rest of the people were meeting here, but we had most of them staying here. And we had planned it out, we're cooking and all that kind of stuff. And the night before everyone was to get here, my oven in the kitchen literally started on fire. and I had to use a chemical fire extinguisher, which, by the way, when you hit flame with a chemical fire extinguisher, it just explodes with powder. So now I've got a kitchen that is covered with this fire extinguisher residue all over, and I don't have a stove oven for everyone. So what do? You run out to the appliance store. Of course, they're out of everything. The only models they had were either really cheap ones or these really extravagant ones. We were forced to buy a model that something I didn't really even like, and I still have the thing because I was forced to buy it for lack of anything else. But we got busy cleaning the kitchen. We got the mess cleaned up. We got the new oven in, and we had a great time with family. And it could have been we laughed about it. We were telling everybody, this is a funny story. So how do you deal with that stress? You could call everything off. You could get upset. You could drag that into the work week. You could drag that out for forever. And for us, it just becomes another fun story. It's a part of something that shapes you. So, or vehicle problems, you got a major road trip and all of a sudden the car starts acting up, or you get a flat tire. I've had a flat tire the night before I was to leave on a road trip. I ended up with a little yellow light on. You've got a low tire warning. And I was leaving at 4:00 in the morning. You can't get a tire fixed anywhere at 4:00 in the morning. So, little things like that pop up. How are you going to respond to those stresses? Here's another one. If you're mad, if you're stressed, if you're unappreciated, if you're not in control. And my favorite, having been a parent of 4 lovely children, all wonderful adults now, all of which were typical young people finding their way in the world. Family dynamics. You end up, you can have one conversation before you leave for work that can seemingly wreck your whole day. It can be something that you eat on all day long. Somebody says something, or you're not quite in the right mood. And I used to do this all the time. Every time I stopped at a stoplight on my way to work, because I always left in a good mood. My wife sent me off in a good mood every morning. And I would look at people in their cars, and it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing how many people look so unhappy on their way to work in the morning. It really is. Don't be that person. Be the one who smiles, wave at somebody else. And, it's just amazing. So notice it. If you haven't paid attention to it before, just look around and look at all those people and think, what kind of stress do they have? Do they have to go to work? Do they want to go to work? Do they even like their jobs? Or is it something they're bringing with them from a conversation they just had? Maybe their water heater just went out. They had to take a cold shower before they got up. It could be a myriad of things, but everyone's reacting to their own stresses in the day. And those are people you're going to end up working with. So those are all emotions. That's a whole list of emotions. I'm sure nobody on this call has ever felt any of those, right? I see a couple of smiles there. Thumbs up. So here's the point of the story is this. Emotions build our character. All right? Those events and how they make us feel are what's building our character. How you react to it at that very moment may reveal where your character is at in development, okay? But it's helping develop it. So we have to be able to learn to take criticism, sarcasm, rejection, all those different things. And I'm going to add this too. I wanted to start with this, but I'll throw it in here now. Why character? Why are we talking about character on a business call, right? For entrepreneurs. Why character? Well, this is a soft skill. There are hard skills and there are soft skills. If you want to learn banking and finance, go back to college, right? Those are hard skills. It's the soft skills that will make the difference in how you respond, how you attract people to your operation, how you attract investors to your group, how you assess people you want to be in business with, how you assess people you want to work with, how you assess people you want to spend time with when you're not working. These things are the soft skills that make the difference between a great business person, and somebody who can just get by. These are the skills that you need to be paying attention to in your life and in your business that are going to take you to the next level. So when sometimes we have these calls and we think, why are we talking about this tonight? You may not get it. And I actually listened to a podcast today. Jim was talking about his personal trainer who's having him do all these different exercises. And it's like, what on earth is this going to do for my performance? I don't understand. I don't get it until you're actually in the event, and all of a sudden it all comes together. And this is one of those pieces that will help it all come together. So hopefully you're getting some of this, that we're all just real people out here, but we can use all these experiences to refine ourselves. And then I've got a nice illustration for you because I had to do a little bit of homework. That being said, all these things that we deal with, I'm throwing this out there because we can put up with a lot, and we need to learn to put up with a lot. We have to have a thick skin. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and face failure on a daily basis and have people tell you it's not going to work and that won't work and why are you doing it and why don't you just do it another way, you're going to have to develop some thick skin. But that doesn't mean you ever tolerate abuse. All right. I want to throw that out there because that's not okay. You have your own personal boundaries. And I'm one of those, I never got mad. I always planned to get even. And then I would get into that vengeful thing and spend too much time thinking about other stuff. And my wife told me, I get some of my best advice from my wife, by the way. She told me one time I just really wanted to get even with someone. And she said, let your success be your vindication. Let your success be your vindication. And that means simply let it go. And I'm one of those that I like to tackle problems. And sometimes, going after a problem, you tackle somebody and you might get hurt. So choose your battles. Choose your battles. And I've been involved in business lawsuits as well. I can tell you that they're no fun. They are draining. They take a lot of energy and emotional and time. Even when you're right, and even if you're vindicated, it's still taxing. And not worth it. It can be worth it, but in the long run, I think it's worth it in the lesson factor more than the financial factor. So iron sharpens iron. Here you are, you're on a Y.E.S Syndicate call. This is where iron is sharpening iron. We're calling this stuff out. We're being vulnerable, but you need to stay sharp. You might already be on your game, in your game. In your career, you might feel like you're there, but you've got to stay there. Hopefully Y.E.S is that steel during the week. You're sharpening your blade, right? So what are you doing to stay sharp? And let's go back to the steel for just a second, because I started off by saying you can either throw a temper tantrum or you can use temperance, right? So what does that temperance actually mean? When you're folding steel and heating steel, that's to make it stronger. But the first thing that happens is it gets hot so you can bend it, and it actually changes the atomic structure of the metal itself. And then you quench it. You put it in water or oil to quench it, but then it becomes brittle. And so it has to be reheated and then tempered. It needs to be held at a constant temperature for a longer period of time after it's reheated. So all of these different emotions that we've just talked about, whether we start with just the hungry, angry, lonely, tired, those are those emotions that are heating us up, right? But that's not what gives you strength. What gives you strength is the long cooling off period. That's where you get your strength. That's what's going to make so that you can hold your edge longer. That's going to make so when there is impact, it's not going to break you. So we can learn a lot from the steel, right? Who wouldn't rather have that 12-fold samurai sword as opposed to some cheap knockoff model, even if it's just for show on your wall. But again, it's the cooling down that tempers the steel. And that's what's going to temper your character too. If you are one of those that just want to react, and I'm not talking about a gut instinct reaction of how to make a decision. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about controlling your emotions, controlling what other people see in your actions, because character ultimately is not what you say, it's what you do or what you don't do, as illustrated in Jim's book. So with that being said, keep pressing on. How are you going to temper yourself with this call? There are other things you can do. Listen to good sermons. Go to church if you want. Read books, challenge yourself, podcasts. And it's not just the business aspect, it's the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional. You know, we're a conglomerate of all of those things. And so we have to work on tempering every area of our life. It's not just our business skills. It's not there and doing there. It's what are we doing for our home life? What are we doing for ourselves to build ourselves up mentally? You know, are you doing the are you meditating? Are you praying? Are you spending some time with yourself just to cool down, to leave some of that stuff off? We've got to be doing some of that stuff. And on top of that, we've got to be able to forgive our past and change our story. If we've had issues, it's time to deal with that and change our story. I'm not where I need to be. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm working it. Right? I look at every opportunity as a way to work it and asking other people how I can help. Change your story. Do that by practicing gratitude. Stop complaining. Action, 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 not excuses. All right. So final note here, apathy. There's a story of a man who, I heard this from an old farmer. He says, a mule will work tirelessly for 10 years for one chance to kick a cruel master in the head. And I don't know if that's true for mules, but I know it is for people, right? So never push a loyal person to the point where they no longer give a damn. I saw that on a bumper sticker or a meme somewhere. Never push a loyal person to the point where they no longer give a damn. And that's the mule. Right? Never, ever find that point in other people. Never squeeze them so hard that what comes out isn't going to be in your favor. That's the other thing, judging how hard you put the squeeze. What are you doing to cause different reactions in people? Maybe you're part of the response. You're responsible for that response. So look within yourself. But apathy is the worst thing, and look for that in the workplace, look for that in workers. If people no longer care, and if they don't care about themselves, if they've got a terrible home life, they can become apathetic emotionally, and that can bleed over into work. They can become apathetic to work. And apathy is probably the most dangerous. It's worse than anger. In fact, if you look at our society today, when people no longer have hope, when they don't care about anything, they lack compassion, they lack heart, they're soulless, hopeless. It can lead to suicide and it can lead to homicide. So apathy is something that you need to be kind of on the lookout for, especially in our society today. A lot of people feel hopeless. And this little lesson is to give you hope. Start looking for those triggers. Start looking beneath the surface. Where can you reach out to help people if they're struggling in any of those different areas? Number one, it might just be like asking them, hey, are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? I heard that last week. No, I'm just pissed off. Baby crapped all over. I had to clean it up just before I went to work this morning. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? It's real life that we have to be concerned with, and it's real people in our lives. So those are the things that are going to help build our character, but it's our responsibility to help build other people's character as well. So now, all that, I'm going to wrap up here with one of my Rod's rules of three. If any of you have been in the back end of Y.E.S, and I hope you go back there and dig around a little bit, here's a couple of nuggets. So this is a lesson on character, and I thought this was going to be kind of fun tonight, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how to lie, cheat, and steal. All right? How do you lie, cheat, and steal? Well, I was listening to a training session where they said there are 3 things that you need to do to become a better person. 3 things. Number one, write this down, a growth mindset. You want to be a better person? Develop a growth mindset. Number two, practice delayed gratification. And number three, tap in to enlightened advisors. All right. So how are you going to remember those three? Number one, growth mindset. You're going to lie. You're going to lie awake at night, dreaming, praying, meditating, reading, studying, planning. Okay. We're going to lie. Number two, delayed gratification. You're going to cheat. You're going to cheat yourself out of those momentary rewards and pleasure. You're going to cheat yourself out of that weekend where you wanted to go golfing and biking and hiking and not doing anything. And you're going to spend some time working on your business. How can you perfect it? How can you perfect yourself? What different things can you employ? What seminar can you go to? What can you tap into to take your business to the next level? Because it will cost you your free time, because that's delayed gratification. You can take that time off after you build your business, after you get it set up, after you get it started, after you've reached the goal you've set for yourself, then reward yourself with that time off. Okay. So cheat yourself out of those short-term days off. Put the time in. Number three, steal. Steal ideas and processes from other businesses and other people that work. I'm not talking about copyright infringement or trademarks. I'm not talking about that kind of steal. I'm talking about stealing ideas that work. And everyone out there, if there's a good idea, in fact, Jim said this best, even if it's an idea for a product, you can always have another product because everyone's going to deliver it differently. Okay. But steal those ideas, study other businesses, study the history of businesses, study the people who led those businesses. And there are tons of books out there, not only on businesses, but business people to get you started with that. But you can lie, cheat, and steal. And that's what it's going to take to get you to the next level. That's part of your character development. So when anyone asks you, well, what did you learn on your call last night? I learned how to lie, cheat, and steal. All right, but you better explain it. All right, I don't want to have any bad rumors started out there. So self-evaluation. I'm going to wrap it up with this and we'll go into question and answer. I want you to do honest self-evaluations, right? Where are your weaknesses? What are your triggers that, we all get squeezed, and sometimes a squeeze is easier for other people, or sometimes you can squeeze me in one way and it's not a big deal, but you say something about my wife or my kids and all of a sudden you got a problem on your hands, okay? Know what your boundaries are and what sets you off, what your triggers are. And it's okay to have those boundaries, but how you react to them, again, is that character development. Are you different at home than you are at work? Are you different in social settings than you are at church? Even though that is a social setting, but I mean, think about it. Are you the same person on the golf course, the racquetball court, the gym, as you are if I met you on the street or at a pub, at a restaurant? Are you the same person? That's character. All right. Who are you friends with? How do they speak? Who do they admire? Are they compassionate? Do they have pets? How are they with animals? Right? Do they have goals? Are they self-centered or are they others-centered? And ask yourself that question too. Are you self-centered or others-centered? Are the people you hang out with, are they know-it-alls? Or are they always pressing in, trying to learn and learn new things? What are your friends, your associates? What are their favorite movies or books? This is a way to start delving into character. What is it? And are those the people you want to be around? Are those the people you want to hire? Are those the people you want to be in business with? And here's the real telltale for me is this. How do people speak about their friends, their kids, and their spouse? Because if they're talking bad about their friends, they're probably talking bad about you too, right? And quite honestly, I can't respect anybody that talks bad about their spouse. I mean, you should be that frontline person anywhere you go. And I will tell you, in my wife's line of work, she does a lot of counseling and consulting and in different areas, but there's a lot of on both ends of the scale, and I've seen it in my life as well, where people, they're married, you'd think happily married, but they don't speak highly of their spouse, and I lose all respect. I couldn't be in business with someone like that. It's just like that's my cue card right there. That's the litmus test. But think about that. How do you speak about your wife, your friends, your associates, your kids? Because if you're slipping there, it's time to ratchet it up. It's time to move it up a notch. Okay. And then lastly, do you do the right thing even if you know you could get away with doing it otherwise? Do you do the right thing? And lying, cheating, and stealing, remember, I have requirements for those. You can lie, cheat, and steal, but only in the context that I gave you. So that's really all I had tonight. I was going to tell a couple of more stories on myself, but I think you already get it. I've been humiliated and embarrassed, and it's made me a better person. So I'm going to open it up if anyone has any questions. And I actually see some stuff over here. Somebody who said it's Rod's Weekly Therapy is teaching us. I love it. Oh, that's perfect. Here we go. Spirits business, delivering product differently. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that real quick too, because Jim, you mentioned there are 2,200 tequilas in market right now, but there's always room for another one. And how many different beers are there? How many different whiskeys are there? Is there always room for one more? You know, we can't let that be an excuse. Jim, I'm gonna have you weigh in on this.
Yeah, I got a few comments, and I appreciate you quoting that story from my book. And I wrote a little note, and the note says, "Find ways to be the person that you say you are and the person you want to be." Right? In this particular case, this person's all about, hey, this is who I am. I'm no bullshit. I'm constantly hitting home who he is, right? So when somebody like that says, yeah, absolutely, you take it at face value, right? So let's not give ourselves the opportunity to let others down, so that the perception of who we are changes. And we don't always get the chance to show others, especially at work, to be that person that you say you are. And sometimes you've got to create a little bit of that opportunity through some goodwill or some outside actions. And what's great about social media is that you can be seen doing those actions without bragging, but organically being the person that you say you are. And once you get in the habit of being that person, you'll become that person. And I think oftentimes we forget that. And we live in a society where the world is watching our every move. That we live for that, right? We get on our phones and we're watching. So thank you for bringing that up, because it's a good reminder. If we say we're going to do something, we need to do it. Otherwise, you're going to become that person that doesn't necessarily do it. And you diminish all that work that you've done talking about who you are and what you're able to do. So anyways, the other thing I wanted to bring up, and it goes along with what you're saying about these classes and how they all come together. Right. I interviewed Chris Gethin today on the podcast. The show will be out tomorrow. Chris Gethin he started Caged Nutrition and Clothing Line. He's got almost 1 million followers and really successful bodybuilding supplement company. And what was interesting is the first half of our interview talking about getting healthy and ways that we can get healthy. Now, granted, he sells supplements and he sells private coaching and he has a gym that he can sell memberships to. But the first half of the call was all about things that you could do for free. That doesn't cost a penny. Drink more water, get more sleep, watch your nutrition, be positive. Like all these things went on and on and on. And then we dug into each one. And then finally I had to pull it out of him like, Chris, if somebody wants to hire you, how do they find you? Right. And the point of that story, or telling you that about that interview, is he cares more about the people or the success of somebody than he does about making money. I literally had to ask him, how do we reach out and pay the fee, right? And I just thought, what a wonderful way to approach your business. And so as you look at all these pieces that we're giving you each Monday night, they're pieces of the puzzle to be that Chris Gethin, where you're able to give it up front, be more concerned about your customer or your family member or your boss, your corporation, whatever it is that you're doing, and know with confidence that who you really are will bleed through and the success will come on the other side of all that giving. And it was a great opportunity to interview somebody at that level, at top of his game, and has that kind of success. So Rod, thanks for bringing all that together. I think you got to get out more. That was not a very embarrassing story. I do understand that you're a teenager, but
hey, that was a shocker. Okay. So, and it was hilarious. I imagine it was, if it was on YouTube, it would be, viral.
Well, if anybody's got a question, throw it in or raise your hand or whatever. I will say that I would be that prankster that backed up on you so that the whole world could see. Samantha's on the call. She knows for a fact we had a guy behind my truck in the middle of the desert going potty, right? And he thought he was in the dark and nobody could see him. Well, if you know, new trucks have a backup camera, and we had 6 people in the car, including his stepson. I put the truck in reverse so the camera turned on. Guess what? Now that was embarrassing for him. So we can do much better.
Hey, pranks are okay. Pranks are okay, but it's always at the expense of somebody. Remember that. So I do want to tie that back into a couple of weeks ago. I talked about, one of the things you need to do is, make your plan. And then the last thing is tell the world, this is part of that character building thing. If you tell the world you're going to do something, you need to do it. Even if you say, I got delayed by a week, but I'm still in the game. We have to be accountable, and that's part of character building. And that's, again, my biggest thing is your character is malleable. You're not born with your character. It's shaped, and you get to shape it. But we can't let circumstances shape us. We have to use those circumstances to shape our own character.
Hey, Ron,
So
I'll weigh in on Brendan's question about the tequila, because he brought up a good point. Obviously it was a nice compliment. Thank you for that. But at delivering product differently, right? And he asked how many tequilas are out there. Well, there's over 2,200 right now. What's interesting about this is what we're talking about is find ways to be the person that you are, or be the business that you are, and really showcase that. And that's what differentiates products in the market. What I did in the tequila business, and I've continued to do, I've launched 4 tequilas since I launched mine. And matter of fact, I made a call today to one of my clients. I said, hey, I loved your newsletter. And I clicked the link for your website, and I noticed that your website resonates exactly with your newsletter of who you are, what you represent, what your brand represents. And I'm all in, right? Like I feel what you guys are trying to put out there in the world. And that's them being authentic. That's how you can stand out amongst the clutter of 2,200 brands, right? It's the brand is Baja, B-A-J-A, Arriba, which is A-R-R-I-B-A, Baja Arriba. And I just thought, wow, you guys are nailing it. So what I did is I said, I just want to remind you that this is your center compass. A year or 2 down the road, when you start feeling like things are frayed, remember today, remember what you're putting out there is exactly who you are authentically and real, why you started your brand, what you represent, and don't get away from that. Always have the center compass, because there is a lot of space, even in a crowded market, to start any business. And I'm looking at, I see Fred, I know what you're working on. There's a space for you to do that business. Don't get crowded out or feel like what you do isn't good enough for the marketplace. When I started at Kettle One Vodka, we were going up against Absolute Vodka, which was the world's largest vodka company. And they had a genius marketing plan. They had books around their marketing, and the Absolute bottle, everybody remembers it was the IV, and, it was very, very clever. I thought there's no way we're going to chip away at what these guys are doing. So we decided we only want 1% of their business. And we just stayed focused on our story, who we were, and chipped away at that. And ultimately we surpassed their sales by a long shot and sold the company for $2 billion, right? So a lot of times they say, put your blinders on. Don't be detracted by what others are doing when you're passionate about your product. It will succeed if the personality and your vision's behind it and you live it and you carry that out. So thanks for the question, Brendan. I think that's how we've done it. Stay true to who we are. And that's how come we deliver product differently, because we're all individuals. Every person's different. We just did it our way. We made sure the consumer knew that.
There's something else in that too, Jim, and that's if you have that idea, and when I think entrepreneurs, I'm thinking it's always about your character and being true to those things, but it can be that one idea. And I was recently watching a history channel about Burger King and how Burger King came to be, right? And it was McDonald's. McDonald's had the market cornered. And what turned the tide for Burger King was they came out with, McDonald's was just doing everything the same, right? Mass producing hamburgers, right? And the experience. And they had it dialed in. Ray Kroc did an incredible job of dialing that in. Burger King came on the scene, and they wanted to do what McDonald's was doing, but they wanted to do something different. And what really put them on the map, and of course, McDonald's retaliated and jumped up ahead again, they came out with the Whopper. So do you think the Whopper came first or the Big Mac? The Whopper came first. And it was a signature burger that they came up with. And Ray Kroc wanted, all of a sudden, it's like, how did this happen, right? And then Burger King was also the first fast food chain to start advertising on TV. Burger King, not McDonald's. And Ray Kroc, being competitive, decided, hey, I can't stand for this. I need a signature burger, and I'm going to start advertising on TV. And he came up with a burger, and he wanted it to be called the Blue Ribbon Burger. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Do you remember that? Well, guess who named it the Big Mac? A 21-year-old secretary in the office who was overhearing their meeting. Why don't you call it a Big Mac? And the rest is history. So you can have that one idea that makes you different. It might be the packaging. It might be the bottle. It might be one little thing, but those little things matter. If they matter to you, they can matter to your customer. Anyway,
hey, Rod, you've got a good question, so I'll let you digest that. I'll give one more scenario in the tequila world. Another brand I helped launch 2 years ago that we worked on a year before we launched is a brand called Wild Common, which is a tequila and mezcal company. And what was interesting about that is I absolutely hated the name. I got to know the client, fell in love with his vision and who he was, but he never told me the name. Started talking about his passion for authenticity and craft and sustainability. And he's a National Geographic photographer. And all the stuff that he does is like the shoots on Mount Everest or big wave surfing or Half Dome where he's on the side of the mountain. He said, everything I did, I would have died. Like I could die in that job because I was tired of putting myself in danger. And they paid him huge money. But his core group of friends were all these guys doing crazy, wild things. And so finally, like, Andy, you got to tell me the name of this tequila. He says, Jim, it's called Wild Common. And it stands for all of us wild people. We have something in common that we get to share around the campfire while we're drinking some tequila. I thought, well, I still don't like the name, but I get it now, right? But what's happened over time in the last year and a half is he launched the brand into the market. He's told that story. It's resonated with buyers. And the reality is he's now ranked like one of the top 10 craft authentic tequilas in the United States. Everybody's clamoring for it. And they keep selling out, and he's got to go get more. So he's done a fantastic job with the crazy name. To your point, Brendan, being different. So Rod, I'll let you answer that legal question. Good luck.
All right, thanks. Boy, that's a tough one. I will tell you first that the question is, if you haven't read it in there, a little off topic, what were the determining factors that finally pushed you into moving forward with your business lawsuits in the past? What threshold would you set for yourself now to get into a lawsuit again? Number one, if it's an infringement on anything that you own, right? If it's obviously a legal thing like trademarks, or if you would a simple cease and desist work to get you back on track, or if somebody's stealing your ideas, or speaking something, if it's about integrity issues, if somebody's bad mouthing your company, that sort of thing. I mean, if it's an integrity issue, I would bring the suit. And that's ultimately what it came down to for me. Was it was something bigger than me. I needed to make a point. And so it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about money. It was about, this was the right, what you did was wrong, and you need to right that action. And I won't accept anything except that. So, I mean, it's still a struggle. When you're successful, it feels good, but it's temporary, because there's still a big struggle there. But if you're protecting your business or your reputation, to me, those are no-brainers. And other than that, that's really between you and an attorney, to decide what are the legal ramifications. How much is it going to cost? I mean, it's a cost-benefit analysis. What's the takeaway here? So yeah, that's to me, it's an integrity issue, but it's also a business issue. So consult with a lawyer, consult with your family, because it will take a lot of time. There are depositions, there's research. It just goes down a whole nother route. It's like building a new business. You're building a lawsuit. You're building a business for your lawyer. So whose legacy are you working on? Are you working on yours, or are you working on your lawyers? That's that cost benefit analysis.
Hey, Rod, I'll weigh in on that too real quick. And this is the benefit of having two different perspectives from a business standpoint and where we've been. I've been in one big lawsuit when I launched my tequila brand. Cost us $250,000 over some naming within the description of the brand. Ultimately, we would have won the lawsuit, but they had way more money than we did. It was with the guy that started Famous Amos Cookies. And, the reality is the only people that win in lawsuits are the attorneys.
Yep.
And my philosophy, coming from a racing and, I'm going to go win mentality, is I'm just going to do a better job. I'm going to kick their ass on the playing field, and the lawsuit will be irrelevant. And if I've got to shift or change a name or what, I'm just going to be better than them, because again, the lawyers are the ones that win. So it looks like Fred wants to add something. I'll take you off mute, Fred.
Go ahead, Fred.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
So I guess, anyways, I wasn't going to go into the lawsuit stuff, but I guess I'll jump in there for a second, because it kind of ties into what I wanted to share. Is so my last business, the one I went all in on, 212 Performance Clubs. That's where I met Jim Riley. We were at the Mint 400. He was buying some product that was custom made for his team, taking care of his guys. And so anyways, it was a good relationship. So anyways, we had a bad departure with my financial partners, and it was pretty ugly. And as you can imagine, I'm pretty torn up inside, and I'm out. I believe in this core four system. You got to do your core four, the four pillars of, fitness, your spirituality. So anyways, I follow that program, and I'm out riding my mountain bike, and I'm looking for a podcast to listen to. And I see that, I think I was scrolling through Instagram, and Jim had posted that he was starting the Y.E.S, just say yes, or whatever it's called. So anyways, I listened to Jim's very first podcast. And so this kind of ties into the product story too. But what was interesting is that, I go, man, I know Jim, so I'm gonna put that podcast on while I go ride. That's my time. I love to go ride my bike, just get lost in a podcast, and wherever I end up is, where I end up, and I come back and I feel kind of rejuvenated. But anyways, I had no idea that Jim had this, in his past, so I listened to his story, and it connected with me in a pretty profound way. So as soon as I got home, I'm sitting in the back doing my meditation. I go, you know what? something's telling me just reach out to Jim. And sure enough, even though we had crossed paths and we knew each other, but I didn't know Jim like I know him today. And, he's got a special place in my heart, and he's helped me make some very serious decisions when it came to business. Cause as much as you want to fight the good fight for what's right, he's like, Freddie, I'll never forget what he told me. I can remember standing on the street by a transformer on my bike. And, he said, hey, he goes, think about yourself when you're at full capacity, you're 100% you versus the version of you that's going through this lawsuit. You've got this uncertainty, you're spending tons of money. It could take 3 months, it could take 3 years, it could take 30 years. And he goes, but what's the expense, long-term on you, your health, and ultimately your family? What are you going to have at the end of the day? So anyways, he helped kind of really just put things in perspective. And at that point in time, as much as I felt like I had my baby stolen from me, that's how it felt, I could see the impact it was having on the family. And after 5, almost 6 years of building this business from nothing into something and watching it materialize and do everything you ever dreamed a business to do was working, it was very difficult to make that decision, but I could see just the trials and tribulations in building the business, being gone constantly away from my family, that, I didn't want to carry this on and carry that burden on me and not be present for my family during that period where we're fighting a lawsuit. So I took his advice and I just swallowed my pride. And I said, hey, because it came down to what's more important. Was it money or is it my family? My family definitely wins. And like Jim said, he goes, you can always make more money. So it was some pretty valuable advice. So now moving on to the product stuff, one of the things I wanted to share is that the commerce is so different today. I mean, Jim, Rod, we're all about the same age, I'm imagining, but it's just pretty interesting. The fact that when we were growing up, if you were a musician, you had to get picked up by some record label that's going to tell you how to be a better singer, what to wear, how to dress, whatever the case may be. And same thing for products, so you had to get picked up by if you had a food product, it had to be General Mills, or if you're going to be in the surf business, you wanted to present something to Quicksilver or Rusty or whatever and get noticed, you know what I mean? But we've got such a different environment now with social media. The reason I connected with Jim was because of social media. I knew him, but I didn't know him, so we had met on a few occasions and we knew each other enough to make a phone call. But what sold me on Jim was hearing his story. And I know a lot of people in business, I was talking to a friend over the weekend. They were talking about Black Rifle Coffee and how great it is and blah, blah, blah. And I remember then we were just getting started. Black Rifle Coffee they have great coffee, don't get me wrong, but their story is so profound. And to watch those guys build their business from nothing on this passion of supporting the military and giving back and just their values, their beliefs, you're buying from those people. They were a tiny little coffee company that now had gone public with another friend of mine who's Tom Davin, who has built Spectrum Gyms, has taken a lot of companies public, Great Panda Express. I don't know, there's a few others that are in the mix too, 511 Tactical, so when I see Tom Davin move to a new company, they're going public because that's his specialty. But what's interesting to me is even at the top of the game at Tom Davin's level, there's still this story that is your brand, even at a small level. I'm working on different things, and the more I push, the better it does. If I back off, it backs off, but people want to buy from you. And I will reserve myself a lot of times for getting on and speaking, but I'm forcing myself to be more vulnerable, get out and speak, and pushing towards, doing more so online. So people build your brand, and we don't need to sell to the world. That's, I guess, the moral of the story. We just need to connect with our tribe, those people that believe in your core values. If your core values align with theirs, then they're going to, for Jim, like whatever he's selling, I'll just buy some. It doesn't matter to me. If he needs something from me, I'll just give it to him, because I like what he stands for, So we want to do business with people we like. So I don't think people have to have these gigantic, goals of being McDonald's and fighting with Burger King. If you get there, God bless you. You know what I mean? That's a whole different ballgame. But I love the fact that this market today it's kind of like a big boulder being broken into a million pieces. And now everybody has a chance to take their piece of that pie, where it was just so consolidated before. It was, was a big dream to get there. But I guess if we believe in what we do, then we put ourselves out there, be vulnerable, share our message, and then connect with these people. So anyways, kind of an interesting approach to it, but I wanted to get on to share that, number one, for Jim. And then also for people just getting started, because I had to go back to the drawing board. We're doing new things again, and I'm finding some hurdles. That's why I think it's important to get on these calls. I have some hurdles that have kind of been embedded. It's almost like PTSD in business, whether it's partnership agreements, because I don't want to go down this road again. Lawsuits are ugly, nasty, and it's like a black cloud over you until you can get rid of it, So
we
anyways,
learn from those things. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that so much. It's a great shout out to Jim. And remember, people are looking at you that way as well. So
Right.
what we're all building our brands is what we're doing. And that brand is ourself first and foremost. So we're a little after 7. Thanks everybody for sticking with us.
Thanks,
I
guys.
look forward to Jim leading the call next week, and we're going to just keep this train running.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you,
got, it looks like next week is integrity under the develop category, and it's business is personal. And before I let everybody go, you can hang up if you want, but I just want to say one more thing, because I don't want to miss this opportunity to say it. And Fred, I appreciate your transparency. What's interesting about that call, and I don't think I've told Fred this, is that I walked into that podcast without the confidence of knowing what I was going to talk about. But then I thought I'll just give my life story and business, and all these things. And it resonated with Fred. What that was is my own honesty. And then Fred was also being honest at the same time with himself, going, hey, you know what? I could use a little advice or help. And he reached out to me and asked me for help. Here's the part that Fred probably doesn't know. I was working with David Meltzer at the time, who was my professional business coach. Not inexpensive relationship, but incredible and awesome and all the same. Dave has been around. And I said, Dave, it's interesting. I got a few calls after the podcast, people asking me about, their own business endeavors and challenges. I said, what do you think? He goes, Jim, that's what consulting looks and feels like. Maybe you might want to consider doing that. And based on that, and really based on Fred's call, because he was the first of 3 that called me that week, I built a business plan around consulting and doing exactly what we're doing on this call. I moved my family with confidence to Montana around that business plan, and I've had the best 3 years of my life. So the point is it takes everybody being a little bit vulnerable and honest, and we all succeed in the process. So Fred, thank you for being vulnerable and honest in that call to me, because it stimulated a business that my family has benefited from, as well as a lot of other people. So I'm going to leave it at that. I look forward to next week's call and appreciate everybody. Thank you, Rod, for the lesson.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you all.